I'm like, yeah, that's not bad anyway. Ready? You'll be great. It'll be awesome. I'm going to do introduction. Ready? You'll be great. It'll be awesome. I'm going to do introduction. I think that might have been us on
We should write this for some.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to Front End Lab. My name is Amelia, I'm one of the leads. I'm a project manager at a company called SmartBrief, and we're really excited to have all of you here today. So we're going to do a quick introduction of the people up here, and then we'll get started, and it's really exciting.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm also one of the leads here tonight. The central office at DC Public Schools, and yeah.
Hi, my name is Marion. I'm also a front-end lab lead, also a mentorship lead for the networking side of Women for Code, and I am a DevOps engineer in Northern Virginia.
Everybody, I'm Isa. I'm front-end lead number 4. I've been with Women for Code for about 2 years now, and I currently work as a web developer for an educational software company in Rockville called Speak Agent. So kind of help organize a lot of these talk tutorial work. So if you guys have any ideas, just let me know.
And I'm Claire, a software engineer here at Social Tables. Thank you all for joining us. We love hosting Women Who Code every second Monday of the month. It's awesome. The hackathon, maybe some of you were here for that a couple Saturdays ago. It's awesome. Yeah, so we're a full stack JavaScript shop, and we're an event software company, and we're always looking for awesome lady engineers to come join our team. So it's all of you. So if you're ever thinking about applying, Women Who Code Slack, and I'd be happy to help you through that process.
So that's a really good transition. So if you haven't signed in yet, we have a code share on the back on that table/whiteboard. If you can sign in there for us, that'd be great. And the link to join Women Who Code Slack is on there. We post a lot of things. If you ever have a programming question, find the channel. There's something like 700 people, I think, in that Slack. It's a really, really good community, and it's really, really helpful. Other announcements. Next week, we're at ECMC, which is by the Convention Center. The week after that, we're at Socrata at their new offices. So if you haven't been to Socrata before, or if you've been to Socrata before, we're someplace new. So double check Meetup for that address, because I don't think I have it yet. So yeah, with that, we're gonna talk about Angular. Yay!
Alright, so my name is Joanna Johnson. I'm a software engineer with and so thank you, Women Who Code, for inviting me. I'm a little nervous, but I wrote this tutorial kind of for me 2 years ago. It would have been very helpful to see this and help me not write ugly, dirty code. So a little bit about myself. I'm a front-end developer. I don't have a computer science degree. I learned on all my jobs. My first program was written in PHP in 2005. That was a long time ago. Then I went into Java, Ruby on Rails, and now JavaScript. I'm a Texan. Kind of part of that. All my family's from there, so I miss it. I'm a lover of all things active. You want to play tennis? Hit me up. Or want to go running or hiking? Let me know. I'm a mother. I've been a mother for 10 months. Your life changes. We're going to talk about that, I can talk about that. I'm a visual learner. I need to see it running to understand. I love to travel. I kind of like to run. I've done some marathons and some half marathons. I don't love it, but I like the challenge. And I'm a work in progress. I'm always learning new things. I'm always trying to improve my skills. So yeah. You brought your laptops and are excited to write your Angular app today. Yeah. How many of you are Angular developers? How many want to be? Sure. Awesome. So I modeled this talk kind of like a dating structure. When you're shopping for new skills, you're shopping for a little bit of you kind of go through these things. Maybe you go on a first date, you get your first impressions. You want to know the history. Where did they come from? Who's their father? Who's their mother? Their siblings? Who they interact with. So we'll talk about that via Angular. Then in swipe right, that means you're like, okay, find it, went okay. So let's find out more about you. This is where I'm going to introduce all the components that Angular 1 provides, from controllers, directives, filters. Dependency issues. Here we're going to talk about dependency injection, and that's not really a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Think of that like networking. Let's say you have a set of skills, and you need a group of people that don't have those skills and provide the skills for them. That's kind of like the dependency injection is. Then we'll talk about promises. Promises can be successful or they can be failures. The more successes, the more trust you get. We'll talk about that. And then finally committing. Once you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Everything checks out. Then that's when you're like, okay, I'm going to write my first app. So we're going to write an app today. Or there is already an app out there. I'll give you my repo. And we'll add a module. We'll add a new feature. That's when you get hired. The product already exists, and you're probably need to maintain it or add a new feature. And we'll go through those steps. And then finally saying I do. Get married, have a baby. What comes with that? Angular has a great community and conferences. If you drink Kool-Aid, then I think you'll enjoy all that it has to offer. Okay, so history of Angular. It was developed in 2009 by Isco Hevery. They call him Papa Misco at the conference. I just went to an energy conference this weekend, and it's like God. So I didn't get to take a picture with him. So, Angular is an open source front-end JavaScript framework. We'll go through that. It's currently maintained by Google, and at the moment it has 1,455 commits, or contributors, I mean. Angular 2 is coming, has a lot of changes. currently a release candidate as of last week. It's not in production yet, so it's something that you have to consider. Do you want to learn Angular 1? Because there's a lot of applications right now that use Angular 1. And so they're hiring right now. Or do you want to learn Angular 2 and be ready for that? But not that many companies have products that are using it. You have to decide for yourself. Who uses it? If you go to LibScore, it's a pretty cool site. You can enter any language that you want, and it'll tell you what sites are using it, and you can see the growth. Angular has seen a growth since December of 2015. You can put React in there, and you'll see like it's a decline. So that's a pretty cool site. This is Angular, Ryanair, Lego. Tools. These are the tools that I use every day. You need an editor. There's Atom. There's WebStorm. There's the BIM. You don't want to make it hard on yourself. You need a terminal. I love developing on my Mac. I don't understand how people develop on Windows, but it's just I just don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense. There are tools that work great on both systems. NPM is a package manager for your server-side libraries. And then there's Bower, that's a package manager for your client-side libraries. So in our app, I use Bower to install, of course, Angular and Angular routes, Bootstrap, anything that's client-side, you would use Bower. But that's how I prefer it. NPM is your backend stuff, like Bolt, which is a task automation. And then all your testing stuff. Then there's Git to commit your new code. You don't want to develop without using Git and having your repo somewhere. Well, automation tool. Google Chrome is my browser of choice, but you really need to test using all browsers. And then there's Angular.js. Style guides. Before you start choosing a framework, I would strongly suggest you find a style guide or find best practices to develop. I like Pluralsight. They have a lot of Angular classes, and John Papa, Ward Bell, they're pretty big in they have a few classes on there. I started getting into testing because of them. And at the conference, I told them, I was like a huge fangirl. When I saw them, I'm like, can I take a selfie with you? I learned to be in a test with you. So if you go to that link, you can see like the style guide. I'll show you my code, and I follow a lot of what it says. Things to take away are a single responsibility. You code for every file you create, you only want one component in there. There's a lot of people that develop and they put all their controllers in one file, and it's like 10,000 lines of code. You don't want to do that, it's hard to test it.
So put each component in its own file.
Yes, it's just so much cleaner.
Good point.
Another thing is iffy. I think it means immediately invoked function expressions. You want to encapsulate all your components in iffy because you don't want to have all these variables in a global space. Another one is the folders by feature structure. So I created this app. The first feature we're going to add is, so I'm using the Star Wars API. And the first feature I'm going to create is a planet module. So the first thing I would do is I would create a folder called planet, and then I would put all its components in that directory. So that's what that means, having a folders by feature structure. Another cool thing about Angular is it has a two-way data binding. All this means is that your data is synchronized between your view and your controller, and your model, which is the data controller. So if you update your view, it updates in the model. If you update your model, it updates in the view. And that's a pretty cool, powerful thing. So that's your first impression. So are you all feeling okay about it?
What did you say about IIFE? What did you say?
It's an immediately invoked expression.
Right.
Function expression. It just means that you want to encapsulate your, let's say, a controller. You would want to encapsulate it in Nifty so that you don't, the variable or component is not in the global namespace.
Okay.
So let's say you have a people controller and there's a library that also has a people controller. It'll get confusing. Right. Okay, so I guess we're swiping right and Tinder. This is before my time, so I don't know what that means really. I just know that people say that it's right. So we're going to go over modules, routing, controllers, directives, filters, and services. So a module is a collection of services, directives, controllers, filters, configuration info. You can create your own module. Here's my person module, and okay, so here's a person, here's a service, and this is a route, and yeah, so first you have to register your module. This is the way you register. And then whenever you want to create a component in that module, and you use it this way. Yeah, so here you set it, and here you get it. So routing allows you to navigate between views. Here we're using Angular Route, which is a library that was stripped away from the Angular library. So there's a different routing mechanism you can use, but I prefer this one. And this is the way you install it. You do not install Angular -route on --state. The --state puts it in your router JSON file. So to create a route, you have to reference it in your index.html file. Index.html file is like it's like the app, really. It's the entrance to the app. That's where you're saying that you want to use Angular by using a directive. called, I think, NG app, and then and that's where you give it the view by using NG view. That's a directive provided by Angular route. And then and then when you create your app, so we're creating an app, and I'm calling it app, and I have to inject NG route in there. I'll show you the line index that HTML in a second. And then there's our okay, so this is another example of a route. This is the person route. This is the core route. So here what I'm saying is I'm using the route provider to give it a path. So whenever you go to localhost, whatever, and then you give it a path to dashboard, and I'm saying that you want to go to that template called dashboard.html, and I want to use this controller. This is where I'll have my model, my actions. If I give it a path that it doesn't know, what it otherwise does, it'll redirect back to dashboard. So you always want to have a then you have controllers. Controllers gather the data for the view, and they add functionality to your view. So this is where you define like your cancel function, your save function, your delete function, or whatever function. This is where also you get your model in person. And you can either use a service to get that those objects, or usually that's the best thing you want to do. Directives. Directives are extended HTML attributes and elements. With 43 directives. There's ng-if, ng-include, ng-change, ng-click, and they're just functions. And they're pretty cool functions that manipulate your DOM. So here it is ng-if. I'm saying if the person exists, then I want you to display their name. You can also include templates on there. Make your code cleaner, especially when you reuse it in other pages. So
Where do you define your directives?
So I like to define them in, I like to put them in a core directory, in a core module. Because usually my directives, I like to use them across my other features. But if it's specific to one feature, then I would just put it in that one feature directory. So the cool thing about this is you can create your own system directives. So you can create one and call it, I could call it, and it could either be an attribute or an element, and it could do whatever I want I tell it to do. Whether it's displaying a table, performing some action. This one is one that is taken from the app I made. All it's doing is, so we have a date that the Star Wars API gives us, a created app date, and it's given to us in this I just made it pretty. So by using this directive, it displays created on and then the date and the time. Then you have filters. Filters just format your data. Here are the filters that Angular provides. Filter currency, date, JSON, lowercase. In HTML, you use a pipe. And so here you have your name and it would just make it uppercase. So it's just transforming your data. To use the same filter as like in your controller in JavaScript, then you would use the filter method. And then you put filter name and then the data you want to transform. So again, you can create your own filters. That's found in the app. And because my app, I called it Yap, then I add a Y to all my directives so that I know it comes from me, from my app. So if I call this app Joanna, then it would say Joanna resource ID. So this one, I'm giving it a URL. I'm stripping the last slash, and I'm copying that resource ID. So this is the input. I don't want that slash, I just want that number 10. Then you have services. Services communicate across controllers, and they keep your data around for a long time. Angular provides us with services. And it keeps going. So if you want to see the rest, you go to Angular.org. And here we're using HTTP service that Angular provides. And we can also create our own service. So I created a person service, and in my person service, that's what I use to get all my data. I'm using the HTTP get method to get all people or to get a person. So services are just, this is how you get your data. Or it can also be that are used across your feature set, that feature. So like if you're doing a calculation and it needs to be seen in two views, and those two views use two controllers, you want to put that function in your service and call it from the controller. You don't want to define a new controller. Okay. So this is the dependency issues section. So all dependency injection is it's a pattern that where an object is given its dependency. So in order for us to use a route, so to define a route, we need a route provider. We need that that function, but it doesn't know about it. So we have to tell it, hey, you need to use this within your function. So if I didn't inject it, then you wouldn't know what to do and it would just give you an error. You have to be careful with that. There's different ways to inject it. I prefer this way where you just use the inject function. I think it's cleaner, and John Papa is all about it. I only do it because John Papa told me to. And then you have promises. Promises are just the result of an asynchronous operation. So when you add two numbers together, 2 plus 2, you get 4 automatically. When you make a request to a server in Europe or in California or your house, it's so you make that request and there's a promise created, and it can either be successful or it can be a failure. You have to code for both. So if it's success, you do one thing. If it's failure, you probably just want to display a message to the user, a service down, something, or it didn't pass validation. Committee. Okay, so how many of you are kind of like liking this or not really? So I think we should build an app. Well, we'll add some features to an app that already exists. So you want to go to this repo. It's ng101-SW. So how many of you used GitHub before? Okay, so you guys know how to comment and all that.
And I just posted the link on the front end channel on Slack, so that if you are on our Slack already, just put it there.
So the first thing you want to do is just clone it. Then you want to CD into it. You want to do a Bower install, npm install.
Right. So when you get know that you have power, so I think I might have
So Bower is a separate product. You would install, I think we use npm to install Bower, right? You do npm install Bower, -g. So while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to show you the API we're going to use. It's called Swappy for Star Wars API, and disclaimer, I'm not a Star Wars fan. My husband made me watch all of them, and I think I need to watch it again and just take notes. Disclaimer. So I'm using Postman right now. I just made a GET request, and so these are all the endpoints it has. As people, planets, films, species, vehicles, and starships. So really quick, I'm just gonna create for people, and I'm gonna get there's 87 people in their repo. So that's how you create for all people, and if you just wanted info on one person, then you would just put their resource ID, and you would just get that one object. So to start your server, you would just do gulp serve and go type in your browser localhost 9000 /pound/dashboard. But you don't need that dashboard. So this is the app. So I'm just going to explain real quick. If you look at my index.html file, you're going to see you're going to have a sidebar with these links. You're going to have this bottom description of types. But as you go through the app, none of that changes. Your sidebar and the bottom part does not change. It's really static. This is where your ng view directive is. This is what is changing, depending on what path you're routing. So I just checked out masters, which is probably what you're seeing right now. And yeah,
It says that it can't find.
you can't find Karma.
Yes, can't find the module.
Uh,
Probably just something wrong.
you did npm install?
That's a testing. It's used for testing. Just if it's
So
in your
I did
package.json, just remove the line that has the yeah.
Yeah, if you go to package.json, anything that says Karma, you can just delete it and then do npm install.
Yeah.
Another thing that I use when I develop is I open up the inspector and I can see my console. So whenever I have errors, it'll display here, or I'll go to network and I can see all my HTTP calls being made. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through what I would do if I were to create a new feature of planets. The first thing I would do is I would create a directory. So let's go pick a planet directory. Can y'all see that, or is that too little? Okay. So here's my app. Here is my application module, where I am injecting ng route, which we're using. I'm injecting core and my dashboard feature. So if you want to look at that real quick, go here to the core directory, where first I have to register my core module. I called it yeah.core. This is where the if is, first line and the last line. So if you look at all my code, you're going to see that in all my files. It starts and it ends with that. And then this is the route, my core route file. So this just says, hey, you go to dashboard, then you go to this template, and use this controller. Otherwise, always go to dashboard. So let's go create any module. So I would call it planet. Then I would register my module. So it's planet.module.js. I would call this planet. So every time I add a new component, I need to let the app know. So after I do this, then I go into my index.html file to the very bottom, and I just let my app know that, hey, we need this file. So nothing exciting here, nothing's different. Not in the core. The second thing I would do is I would create a route, so I need to give it a path. If you look at layout, the bottom menu is right here. When I click here, nothing's happening. If you look in the index.html file, I'm giving it this path using nghref, the directive, to go to planets, but planets doesn't exist yet, so it doesn't know what to do. So we're going to create that route. We've got to create a new file. Call it planet.route.js. So when I went to the Angular, the ng-conf, John Papa created an app and he did it in 18 minutes. And he was like super fast. So I'm not that fast. I apologize. So here we would, we're using the planet module. And we're going to call our function planet route. We need a route provider to define our path. And here we would call this planets. And it's in our planet directory, and we will call it planets.html. We don't have a controller yet, so let's do that. And we don't need it otherwise because our core route module already has it otherwise. So if we were to go here, click on it, it's still not doing anything. Oh, what did I forget? I added a new component, but my app doesn't know about it. So I have to go with my index again, and then let it know, hey, this route exists. So now when I click on it, nothing happens. What am I missing? So I commented that out, but it can't find the template. There's no template that exists. So let's create one really quick. I will go here, new file, and it said it was called planets.html. Okay, that's gonna work. Okay, what did I do wrong? Did I add it in my module? Okay. So I need to put it in here and let my app know, hey, this module exists. Why do you guys tell me? There you go. Yay. Not exciting, right? Okay, so now we click on it, the route or the path is there, the template's there, but there's no data. So that's where the controller comes in. So let's create a controller really quick. So first thing you do, create a file, and call it dash Angular.js. We're going to borrow from our dashboard controller. And let's get the module name. We're going to call it function planet controller. So all we're doing here is we defined a variable called people. It's a type array, and we're calling this init function. All this init function does is it's saying it's defining people as this JSON object. If you remember my postman, that's exactly what it looked like when I queried all people. Okay. Same thing. I just copied and pasted it. So usually when you're developing and you're working with an API team, and maybe they're not ready with adding that new feature, define what you think it'll look like just to have some data to play around with. So you define your controller. I have to let my app know the controller exists. And then I have to let my route know that to use the controller I just created. So there we go. Click on it. I'm here. Where's my data? So I have to update the template to display a table view of all this data. So quick. I'm going to use the dashboard. Call it planet. Oh, we're doing primary. Okay, I'm going to cheat. Look. So this is just my template. It's just a table with the name, planet population, gravity, terrain, and and it's going through each object in my array and it's displaying it in the table. So we go back here. So the reason that didn't work is because I have people. And it's fine. I'm going to show you. So in my planets, I want to really define planets, and I define people. So that was developer error, and I would just go in here. I would create planets, and I would just take all this JSON, copy it, and paste it in here. So, yeah. And go back. So it's really simple. It's kind of tedious. Whenever you create a new component, you have to define it, and then you have to let your app know it exists by putting it in your index.html file. You have to create, you have to register your module. You have to create your controller, create your templates, and then let your app know about it. So if we were to, I have many branches. So you were just to check out the person module. Oops. So if you were just to check out this person module, then you'll see the complete app. So here we have people who created a route for it. That's the view. We have planets. We have species. The one difference here is when you go to people, so this is my inspector. This is the network part. If you look at this, I just went to planets, and the only thing I'm serving is my templates. My index HTML, my planet HTML. But if you were to go to people, something different. You see that it made this people call, and this is if you look in the headers, you can see that it made a GET request to that Star Wars API to get the people. And then when you look at preview, then you see all the data that it returned. So that's the one difference between all this. So with people, what I did is I created a service, and I can show that to you right now. So I created a service called person service to make those calls. I need to inject it with the HTTP service provided by Angular and .key service. So here I like to define like my interface. This just tells I just display at the top my functions. It's just more beautiful that way. So I only have two functions here. I have get person, and then I have get people, and I have get person. So this is my this is where I make that right here up top. This is where I make my get requests for people. When I get the data back, then I provide it to my controller. Oh no, okay, I remember. The thing about the route provider is that before you get to the page, you can resolve all your objects here. So the page won't display until this this GET request was completed. So, which is pretty cool.
Can I ask you, okay, HTTP, that was an HTTP service, right? That just means like what's built in Angular, an HTTP call, certain functions that can be exposed. What does the $Q do? What kind of things does it expose?
So $Q is kind of like, so that's where I think the promise comes in. You can use HTTP or you can use ng resource, and they're both services provided by Angular. You don't have to use QDefer. There's ways to make this call and get the promise back without using it. You just have to chain it. But that's just the way I like to use it. So You're using the defer
So
to,
it's like an alias or whatever JavaScript library using that, like defining like the defer function. Like in jQuery, you use the dollar sign already, and then with like with Ajax, you can just do dollar sign dot.
But the difference is an Angular dollar sign is isn't it? Like when you use dollar sign HTTP, it's a defined thing.
function,
Right.
primary
So
system.
in jQuery, perhaps not use jQuery itself, use dollar sign. Anyway,
I'm not familiar with jQuery.
okay.
But so, and promises are so complicated. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. But I do know that it's a promise map. So you use the q.defer when it's resolved. This data is passed to wherever it's going to be used. So here, it's going to be passed to your controller. It's usually it's always passed to or directed through. So we have. So this is one difference that the first example didn't have. Another difference is, okay, so if you go and you click on a person, let's go to R2D2, then it made another call. You see here it said swappy.co, API people 3. It made that call for that one reference. And this is the data that's coming out of there. So to do that, I had to look at service for get person. I'm passing in an ID, but the data usually it will have an ID with it. There's no ID, but I had a reference. Keyboard. So what I had was I had a reference to the ID. I had a URL, but I needed to strip that from the URL. So what I did, I created a directory, which I would probably use across my other controllers for my other modules. And so I'll show you real quick how I used it. So if you go to people, and you see this, you see that pipe? Resource ideas is my filter. It's a custom filter I built. And I always put all my stuff on the core if I'm going to use it across my modules. So if we were to look at this, this is just my code. You have your FT on top, bottom. You tell it what module you want it in, which is your core, and then you just define your resource. If, let's say I needed other things in here, then I would inject it. Service, or I want to make an HTTP call, I would need to inject it to put in there. You can use services as well. You can use anything. So that's my filter.
So when you do custom directives, you don't have to call it NG, call it one. On that.
When you do custom filters,
Yeah, but this is a custom filter, not a directive.
yeah, this is a custom filter. You can call it whatever you want. I could have called it Austin, which is my son's name, and anyone who does the same thing. You can call it whatever you want. I usually like to give it a name that tells me what it does, and then it's good to put a space to it, a prefix to it that tells everyone that you book your app. It's part of your app. Another thing this module has that the other ones don't is a custom directive, and it's called created on directive. And you see here, it's used in my person template. So if we were to go, you can see it, it's right here. If you go inside template, then you can see if I don't use a directive, then and I wanted to use this in all my templates, then I would have to write this code over and over again to display when it was pointed. And that's just a pain. You don't want to do that. So you can create your own. And so these are you can create it as an attribute. So I'm calling it right here. So I create it on. I pass in a date. Or as an element. That's just the name of the element. Why create it on. Pretty powerful. If we look at the code, so if I save it, then you can see it's just stay there. So would you rather code this all over the place or just like half a liner? But if we look at the directive, you have your if key. You tell it what module you want it to be a part of. You name it. So if you noticed on the template, you had it as dashes. You had y dash created dash on. You have to name it the same way, but in camel case. So this is my directive. I'm telling it that I want it to be flexible. I want it to be an attribute or an element. This is my template. So this is that code you saw earlier. I'm using ngbind to bind my text that is coming out of this function. This is my function. All I'm doing is I'm using the filter to transform my date into a short format. And then I'm appending created on to that date. So I take this created on variable and I inject it to my template here. So that's my custom directive. If you guys want to add more fun stuff to it, you can create forms. I'm not sure how the API works if you can edit your stuff. I don't know how logged on it is. And then you can create your forms, create your functions to save the data, to save a new person, update that person, or delete the person. And that's really just all there is in Angular. I think it's pretty easy. It's just very, can be very repetitive, but it does some cool things. So maybe you'll say I do, maybe you won't. But if you do, Angular has a huge community. They have conferences all over the world. They have an conf, which is happening in Salt Lake City. It was about 3 days. I won't lie, it was great. It was information overload. It was a sausage fest. Sorry. Which was a surprise to me. But everyone's really friendly. And the cool thing about it is they offer daycare. So they could take care of your baby, or if you have a toddler or like someone going to elementary or middle school, then they give them classes where they'll write an app and they'll go on field trips and stuff like that. So I thought that was great. They also have conferences. Well, I know I do conferences. I'm not sure about the others. There's Angular Summit in Chicago, Angular Connect in London, NG Europe in Paris. And then it's just a great community. You can listen to podcasts. There's Angular Air. You can follow Igor Bernard, Mexico, Brad Green, John Papa, on Twitter, and they're pretty responsive. I asked John Papa a question because I was going to use a file upload library, and I wasn't sure what he recommended, and he replied right away. And then I saw him at the conference, and he took a picture of me. He was really nice. So they'll respond to you. Don't feel intimidated. You have a question, ask them. Pluralsight is a good. I'll watch those videos like multiple times. So if your company can pay for that, that's they're investing in you. So I would use it. And that's the end. And that's my baby.
I had one. It's a little vague, but I'm just curious what sort of pairings you've seen with Angular on the back end. What you've seen used in conjunction with Angular. So if Angular is the front end, what you've seen on the back end, and what kind of works well.
So anything, really. There is Ruby on Rails APIs. There's Node. There's it'll work with it. Usually you'll make service calls, so it doesn't matter the infrastructure of the back end. It'll work with it.
Do you have any strong preferences? I was just curious.
Strong preferences?
Yeah, nothing. I know you're front end focused.
Well, I think no, there's
nothing.
no strong
Okay,
preference.
just
As
curious.
long as the team you're working with is you're great at collaborating with them, and they're pretty nice. And, like they're not jerks. Like it's fine. It's about the team. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
How much have you worked with Angular UI?
How much have I worked with it?
Yeah, not Angular, but Angular UI, which is kind of a replacement library for jQuery, Angular. Like, when you put a date picker up, what do you use?
I believe we use the Bootstrap date picker. It's a headache for us to find a good date picker, but I think we ended up with the Bootstrap date picker. Are you an Angular developer?
Well, I've been studying it for a while, and I've done a lot of reading. When I went to Angular UI, get together some guys from Google writing it. It seems like there's a lot of conversation about UI. Everybody loves jQuery. It's, very satisfying, but at the same time, there are better elements like when you're doing like data.
So one thing I heard a lot at the conference was we're not designers, we're design implementers. So we use the tools that are out there. And I know Angular material is what a lot of people are flocking to. Components are clean. If you look at Gmail, you'll see like Angular. I think we use Angular material. It's very clean. You have the buttons that kind of hover. Look like they're on top of the page. I've never developed in it, but it's something I would want to learn.
What you call it?
Angular material.
I can add to that too, because I've been doing some reading about jQuery and Angular, just because we've never used jQuery, and I thought, well, why are we not doing that? And I came across an article that explained that jQuery and Angular are essentially solving the same problem. So if you try to use jQuery in an Angular app, all of a sudden you've got a conflict,
Right.
because they're essentially solving the same problem, which is why you see a lot of Angular apps not using jQuery, because there's an overlap. And it's the same thing with Angular app as well, which is why Angular UI was created, the Angular version of Bootstrap, same problem,
Right.
that there's an overlap. Yeah. Yes.
There's lots of camps and some people are like, never use Bootstrap with Angular. Ever, you know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
You gotta have something for it.
And I haven't been around long enough to try these things and see what problems they've caused. I've just been advised by other people, don't use jQuery and don't use regular Bootstrap in an Angular application because you're going to have these problems.
I feel like we should jump into that, just because I'm an actual Angular developer and I've used Bootstrap and Angular and I've seen jQuery used. And they actually don't solve the same problem, because in Bootstrap, the entire point is to actually design the interface of it. And that's something Angular doesn't do because it's a framework. It's meant to make it easier to display data and to actually put together things like that. So it's not really the same thing as Bootstrap, and it's not the same thing as jQuery either. jQuery is a library which means it kind of condenses the language down, so you don't have to pull things directly from the DOM as easily as you can with Angular. So you can also use jQuery with Angular. Angular actually has it has a lighter version of jQuery called jQuery Lite already built into it that you can use using a function called Angular.element. So they can be used together, but really it comes down to preference for other companies.
Yeah.
Like, I know some companies, they're real against Bootstrap because they feel like, oh, it's something that people kind of use lazily. But I know the company that I work for, they're really into customizing Bootstrap, which is also something that should be pretty easy if you're using something like OS. So it really comes down to preference. But there's nothing wrong with using any of them together, which is what works.
So here's a classic example of, we've got a relatively new technology, two people from two different companies, being advised two separately different ways.
Yeah, I've heard the same conversations in every book. You get the same. Or, right, yeah, it's more preferential.
Yeah. You can look like Ionic, it might already have a UI in it. And when it comes to that, that's when it's like, oh, we don't. But when it comes to something else, or something a plain old Angular app, it does help to have CSS.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, I've never tried it, but try it. Yeah, try. I mean, what do you got to lose? Yeah, I mean.
No, I have seen it.
Okay.
I've seen all the things we're talking about.
Okay, perfect.
But I just want to see what people are saying, because it's like I said, it's not a neat, simple system. We're all kind of in different camps about it.
I don't like to use jQuery in my code. I don't think it's my preference. I don't think it's plain. I'd rather just use JavaScript or Angular functions that Angular provides. It's just my preference. Any other questions? So let me just tell you one more thing. Angular 2 is coming, and it's really different from Angular 1. The main difference is you don't develop in JavaScript. You use TypeScript, which is a superset of ECMAScripts 5, 6, and some of 7. So I mean, you're always going to be learning, right? But it's just something to know that it's just so different. but it does come with a new set of tools that make developing easier.
Sorry, what was, when we were talking about the Angular UI versus whatever, what was that you recommended you look at?
Angular materials.
Material, okay, thank you. I was making a note and then I forgot what it was.
It's also way faster and it's way lighter. The library is like 45 kilobytes. Yes. I mean, at first I was hesitant because it kind of looked like Java, which I ran away from. The more I sat and heard about the tools, the more excited I got. All right, so no more questions? Okay, well, thank you guys. Good, thank you.
There is more pizza back here, so feel free to grab some. We have a space for another half hour, so if you want to hang out, you're welcome. If not, thanks for coming. That was awesome. And if you're interested in coming next week, we're just having a regular kind of open lab time at ECMC.
Come on.